So we are talking about this second order sufficient condition, right? SOSC. Uh, Consider this example. Uh, it says that you have to find a point XYZ on the surface x square minus z square equal to 1, that is nearest to origin. So basically it would say minimize x square plus y square plus z square subject to x square minus z square equal to 1, something like that. Okay, so if you really want to see the picture, it would be like you will be having I mean you can see the picture. Okay, so that's okay to like uh, hyperbolic surfaces, right? So that's what you would see. Okay, uh, rather I should not say like hyperbolic surfaces. That's not the case. It's like uh, I mean what do I say? Let's say wait a minute. Yeah, like it's okay, or whatever it is, like it is. Think the way it would look like, it would be like x uh, equal to 1 plus z square root and plus minus, so that would be the structure. It's kind of y equal to square root 1 plus x square, that kind of a picture. Okay, so Gaussian opening, I mean Gaussian opening. So that's what it is. It doesn't matter. And here the y direction is I mean when that is open, so it will give you it's a cylindrical, a surface kind of a structure. Okay, so that's what you'll see. Okay, and if you want to find out the point that is close to origin, so one would imagine that would be the point here, which is 10, and respectively you will find point minus 10 over here. That's what from the that's what we observe from the picture. Okay, if we draw. Okay, see, like here these are openings. Okay, the opening like with about slope in the uh, uh, I mean as it goes to infinity, so they open uh, like slope 1. Okay, that's okay, no problem. But assume that we are unable to draw the picture. In fact, in all of the most of the cases we'll not be able to draw the picture. I mean, this one is just a typical example to give us the feeling. Okay, so how do I do it? uh, like the first thing is that sometimes so this is a constraint optimization. Okay, but right now I am not talking about constraint optimization. Sometimes this one can be equivalently converted into like putting, if you substitute x square is equal to 1 plus z square, and then you allow yz belonging to R. So then that becomes one on constraint optimization problem in two variables. So that's what you are supposed to do. So you are going to minimize y square plus 2z square plus 1. You forget the plus 1 subject to this. And since this is an unconstrained optimization, so what do you do? Now, so your function is equal to y square function equal to what this. So the function is equal to y square plus z 2z square plus 1. So you will have your grad f. You want to find out the point of this thing, a critical point. So for z and equal to 0, 0, you will get 0, 0. Fine. I have got the critical point 0, 0. Okay, so this is my critical point. Okay. Once I have found the critical point, I do not know whether it is minimum or maximum, that I do not know. But nevertheless, you can apply second order sufficient condition. Second order sufficient condition, what does it say? Now you find out HA. HA, what is A? Now A is this. So what is that? Now this is double derivative with respect to y, so that would be h. Rather, we simply write HA, but you remember this is H, the Hessian matrix of F at A. Okay, this is that only. So that will be 2, and this one would be 4, and then 1, 2 with respect to 1, 2. So 1, 2, 0, 0. 1, 2 means the first variable, second variable. That is the mixed partial derivatives. They are 0, 0. You do not have any mixed partial. I mean, you do not have any yz term. So that would be this. And this matrix HA being positive definite. Positive definite, how do you know it is positive definite? Well, this is a diagonal matrix with diagonal entries positive, strictly positive. They are positive definite. Symmetric eigenvalues are greater than 0. That's positive definite. And therefore, by SOSC, that is the second order sufficient condition, this is a strict local minimum. You can argue, so okay, let me go to the original problem. So in the original problem, you can, this is the 0, 0 is the strict local minimum for the equivalent problem that you had done. So for the original problem, you will have to write, find out what is x being 1 plus z square, z being 0. So x will be plus minus 1. So for the original problem, what you will get is x equal to plus minus 1, y equal to 0, and z equal to 0. That's what we were trying to say. Okay. Okay. And now that you have concluded by using second order sufficient condition, remember second order sufficient condition only says that it is a strict local minimum. It does not say whether it is absolute minimum or not. In order to say that it is absolute minimum or not, you have to give some other argument. So whatever FONC, SONC, whatever you have known, those are only for local. Okay. So to give that it is global, you will have to give some other argument. So here, for example, since your function is y square plus 2z square plus 1, and it is always greater than equal to 1, and at these points y equal to 0 and z equal to 0, the value is equal to 1. So this is an absolute minimum. So, and therefore the corresponding points, that is x equal to plus minus 1, y equal to 0, z equal to 0, they are absolute minimum. In fact, strict absolute minimum. You can also give other argument. For example, if you are looking at the picture, okay, so what you are looking at the picture, the function you are not seeing. Function is what? Now it is the distance of any point on the surface from the origin. Now if you take a huge ball in this 3-dimension, okay, if you take in this 3-dimensional this thing, if you take a huge ball of, let's say, distance of radius capital R, so any point outside this huge ball has a distance from origin bigger than R. Okay, and so any point of the surface outside this ball will have a distance bigger than R. So all you have to do, you have to look at the part of the surface inside this huge ball, and you have to consider the minimum. And because this ball that you are taking, you can take closed ball with radius included, so surface included. So that being a closed bounded set, intersection with this surface, these are two sets of surfaces, they are closed sets. So their intersection is a closed compact set, so closed bounded set, and therefore the minimum will definitely exist, and this minimum will be absolute minimum. So that is another argument you can say. Okay, this one is more illuminating. You can also use z square equal to, remember what was the case? It was sorry, you want to ask something? Okay, remember the function was x square minus z square equal to 1, right? That was the part. So we can also write z square equal to x square minus 1. If I do that when I am doing the conversion, then I must use that x square minus 1 greater than equal to 0. That means x square is greater than equal to 1. So in that case, our problem becomes that minimize. So this is what? Minimize 2x square plus y square minus 1 subject to x square greater than equal to 1 and y belonging to R. Okay, so that is what it has happened. Now this has so what I am looking, so in that case my set is becoming okay, this set, this is your region. So the set feasible region is becoming the shaded region, that is uh, uh, the half plane that is lying to the right side of the line x equal to 1 and to the left side of the line x equal to minus 1. And on that, so these are the points. On those points, at each point, I will have to evaluate 2x square plus y square minus 1, and I will have to find out where it is taking the minimum value. That's what. Anyway, so the same standard principle. First, I will see whether whether I have any critical point. Well, for that, you immediately see grad f if you take this one. So this is 2x, 4x to y, and that is equal to 0, 0 would mean that x and y, they are 0. Okay, and that is not inside our set of consideration. So therefore I do not have a critical point. Okay, no critical point. I do not have a critical points in the interior. Fine, no problem. That is enough. Next, now next I have to test the boundary points. The boundary points are what? The lines x equal to 1 and lines x equal to minus 1. I will have to test them. And what happens to x equal to 1? And there are many points in x equal to 1. For example, I can have a point of the form 1 comma t. Okay, 1 comma t. I can have a point 1 comma t, where t is not equal to 0. Let me first take that. Now, if I have t is not equal to 0, what does the first order necessary condition says? And the first order necessary condition says I will have to look at, first I will compute grad f a, and here because a equal to 1t and grad f is what, 4x and 2y, and so that becomes 4 and 2t. I have considered that. Now, what are the feasible directions I am considering? And the feasible directions that are available at 1t are of this form. For x coordinate, I can go only left, and for y coordinate I can go up and down. So that's possible. Any direction that is possible. Acha, okay, let me tell the current one, then I will tell this one. There is something else. Okay, these are the feasible directions that is possible, and what is t in a t is not equal to 0. So in that case, I see if I take grad f a inner product, what direction? Let me take 0, 1, and then 0 plus minus 1. Okay, let me take that inner product. So if I take that inner product, what do I get? I get plus minus 2t. So which is positive and negative. Okay, for I mean one symbol it is 2t, for I mean for plus 1 it is 2t, for minus 1 it is minus 2t. So that point 1 comma t does not satisfy even the necessary condition to be a local minimum. So it automatically removes that. Acha, one small remark. See the first order necessary condition, when we are talking about the first order necessary condition, the first order necessary condition says that grad fa transpose d is greater than equal to 0 for all d in d closure A, right? That's what it says. It is necessary that this should be satisfied. In order that if the point A is a point of minimum, then it is necessary that this condition is satisfied. Okay, that's fine. That is the theorem. That is fine. If I am going to check, what am I going to do? Now I am actually going to check it for only dA. Why? Now look, if this grad, remember the proof of this one. If this is bigger than equal to 0, grad fa transpose d is greater than equal to 0 for every d in dA, then it automatically becomes greater than equal to 0 for the limit point. So therefore I don't bother. And so if I am going to hope, see, this is what? Now this is a necessary condition. In necessary condition, what is your hope? Now my hope is that I will find some d where the condition fails, therefore I will be able to reject the point A. Okay. Now if you are going to get a point direction d for like for which this product is negative, then you are going to find a direction in dA itself. Okay, so if you can find out for a limited point, you can also find out for a direction. So practically it is enough to consider only dA. Okay, because of the proof, as I said, that if it satisfies greater than equal to 0 for dA, then it will automatically satisfy greater than equal to 0 for D closure A. Anyway, so what we saw here, now we saw the points of the form 1 comma t where t not equal to 0 do not satisfy F1C. Okay. You can also similarly show that minus 1, the other side. Okay, minus 1 comma t, they will not satisfy. Now what about 1 comma 0? The point 1 comma 0. Now at point 1 comma 0, what is your grad f? Now grad f will be 4, 0. Okay. And what are the directions that you have? Oh, sorry. What did I do? What did I say? The directions available? If you are, sorry, you should have said, if I am at the point 1 comma t, then the directions that are feasible directions that are available to me is going to right and going up and down. So this is not less than equal to 0. This is greater than equal to 0. I just concentrated on the like middle part somehow, but it is the I mean shadowed part that is the actual region that we are considering. So if I am at a point 1 comma t, the feasible set is this side. These are the part. The middle part is not feasible part. If the middle part was feasible part, less than equal to 0, x less than equal to 0 is fine. Otherwise this is greater than equal to 0. The directions available here are greater than equal to 0, not less than equal to 0. Because from 1t, if you want to go in a direction, the x coordinate must be greater than equal to 0. Y coordinate can be anything. Okay. And at 1 0, now 1 0 same direction. Direction is the same. X coordinate greater than equal to 0, y coordinate can be anything. These are the thing. And when I take the inner product, I get greater than equal to 0. This is true for all d belonging to dA. Okay. Of course, this is also D closure A, but I really do not bother. Okay. So here I am just saying checking dA is enough. Okay. Next, what does our second order necessary condition says? Second order necessary condition says you find out all those directions for which grad FA transpose D is equal to 0. So which directions, for which directions the grad FA transpose D will be 0 now for these directions, because grad FA is 4 0. So their transpose, I mean their product will be 0. Okay, so for this type of directions, and for each such direction, so basically what is that? And that is equal to alpha times 0 1. Okay, you can write plus minus 1, that's fine, no problem. Okay, or you simply write alpha. Okay, doesn't matter, you write plus minus 1, that's fine. I mean this plus 1 is you are going up, and minus 1 is going down, so that is y coordinate. That's those are the directions that are available. In any case, for all those directions, you should have D transpose HAD. Okay, you should have D transpose HAD greater than equal to 0. Do we have that? Now, yes, we have that, because if I take alpha this 0 plus minus 1, and then HA was 4002, and then again alpha times 0 plus minus 1, what I get is 2 alpha square, which is always greater than equal to 0. So that's okay. So therefore it satisfies the second order necessary condition. Had it failed, had the second order necessary condition failed, I would have said, okay, oh no, it fails here. So this is also not the correct point, but it is satisfying. And then what do I do? So in a similar way, you can see that minus 1 0 will also satisfy FONC and SONC. But can you conclude that this is a point of minimum? Answer is no, because SOSC is only given for a point of interior. Whatever SOSC we gave, second order sufficient condition, it is only for point of interior. And here 1 0 and minus 1 0 in this picture, okay, in the above picture, this picture, it's not point of, I mean, interior. So strictly speaking, by SOSC I cannot say. However, you can use some other observations to say that it is minimum. The same way, function is continuous, and then like you were talking about the original problem. You go to the original problem, corresponding problem, then you can say that it is bound to get, for the original problem outside a ball, the functional values are bigger than capital R. Inside the ball, whatever the surfaces are there, they are bound to have a point of distance, minimal distance from the origin. So the absolute minimum is bound to occur, and these are the and at these points the first order necessary condition and the second order necessary condition are bound to get satisfied. Okay, but we have only found 2 points where the first order necessary condition and the second order necessary conditions hold, and fortunately at both these points the functional value is the same, therefore they are minimum. Okay, they are the absolute minimum. So that's the condition that you that's the argument that you say. Okay, yeah. After that you have some exercises. Let's go to the constraint optimization. Okay. Here also, from the beginning only, as I have said earlier also, right now we are only analyzing. Right now, of course, the first few considerations will be about the set that we are considering. So first thing that we'll assume that the feasible set is being defined using some C1 functions, continuously differentiable functions. Okay, at least once. And assume that T has the form G1, G2, Gm, written in this form. Always remember, it depends on the textbook that you are reading. If you are reading some textbook, some people in the standard format they use less than equal to 0 also. It's the same thing. Okay, but I prefer to write G1, G2, Gm. So there are m inequality constants, and then there are p many equality constants. Okay, so that constitutes T. Fine, no problem. You want to define T this way, so fine, I do not have a problem. Given any point in T, you check which of the inequality constants. The equality constants, of course, H1A will be 0, HPA will be 0, that's fine. But out of the inequality constants, how many and which of them satisfy the equality? Whoever satisfy the equality, they are called active. So, and active, they are called active constants. So these are the indices of those GIs such that GIA is equal to 0. I running from 1 to m. So essentially the way earlier you used to know that those are the hyperplanes passing through when you had a vertex, you would remember the hyperplanes passing through A. Similarly, here you are thinking of these are the inequality constants such that at A their value is 0 essentially. Okay, so you can view some surfaces if you want, and at A they are all like that is touching 0. So that's how it is. Okay, fine. I mean, the equivalent to the LPP here would be those hyperplanes passing through that point. Okay. And the linearizing cone, DA, this is script DA, okay, not the simple D, capital D. It is script DA. What is this? Now this is the set of script DA. This is the set of all directions. D in Rn you can write, D always will be in Rn anyway, such that grad GIA, so you will have to check grad GIA inner product D has to be greater than equal to 0, and this is for all active constants. And what happens to the equality constants? Now for all equality constants, this has to be equal to 0. J running from 1 to P. Okay. This is a non-empty convex, closed convex cone. It is easy to show that. For example, 0 satisfies this, so it is non-empty. And if D is 1 satisfies this, or first say, if D satisfies this, then 2 times D will also satisfy this. So therefore it is a cone. If D1 satisfies this and D2 satisfies this, then D1 plus D2 will satisfy this. Therefore it is a non-empty closed convex cone. Okay, it is a non-empty closed convex cone. What is it? Now look, what are these I? Now I is standing for those constants which are active. Active means what? Now GIA is 0. Okay, GIA is 0, and you are trying to find out a D such that grad GI transpose D is greater than equal to 0. Essentially what you are trying to do, that you are trying to go in a direction D where you expect this GI to increase. Okay, that is what the expectation is, that it will increase. So I am going in a positive in a direction along which along which GI is expected to increase. And if GI is expected to increase, then what I am expecting, that if I move a little bit in that direction, then GI value will remain greater than equal to 0, because right now it is 0, and if it is going to increase, then it will remain greater than equal to 0. So what I am thinking now, if I am having a feasible direction, then those feasible directions will also be included here. I mean, that is what we are expecting. Okay, so that is what it is expecting. So this is called the linearizing cone at A. Fine. We'll show that this linearizing cone contains all the feasible directions, the set of feasible directions. Therefore, their closure, because this is a closed set. Okay. Before that, let me take one example. Okay. So what is the T? Now T is the intersection of, you take the closed unit cube with corners, origin and 1, 1, 1. Okay. So with sides E1, E2, E3, and you take the hyperplane x plus, I mean hyperplane means the plane only. You don't have the, you can write hyperplane, no problem. In general, that is fine. X plus y plus z, x plus 2y plus 3z equal to 3. So I am only looking at, so that's my this intersection is my t. So t can be then written as, so what is t? Now t is like 0 less than equal to x less than equal to 1, 0 less than equal to y less than equal to 1, 0 less than equal to z less than equal to 1, and then x plus 2 y plus 3z equal to 3. So I can write the constraints like this. First constraint is 1 minus x greater than equal to 0, because I have to write them in greater than equal to 0. Okay. Second one is 1 minus y greater than equal to 0. Third one is 1 minus z greater than equal to 0. Next, x greater than equal to 0, y greater than equal to 0, z greater than equal to 0, and there is one equality constant. So this is my G1, G2, G6, and H1. What is H1? Now H1 is x plus 2y plus 3z equal to 3. T is defined as xyz that satisfies this. Fine. Now let me take the point half, half, half. Okay, that is x equal to half, y equal to half, z equal to half, somewhere here on the plane. That would be the point A. Okay, this will be the point A. On this point, I want to compute the linearizing cone. Okay, you want to compute the linearizing cone. Fine. What is the linearizing cone? Now, in order to get the linearizing cone, dA, I will first have to find out what inequality, which inequality constraints are satisfied here. Now I see that because it is 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, none of them is satisfied. Okay, so then this is set of D such that grad Gi transpose D is greater than equal to 0 for all I in the active set. So, but then there is no active set. I mean, the active set is empty. So this is actually not required any further. Only I have to see that set of all this thing such that D such that grad H1 D is equal to 0. Grad H1, well, grad H1 is nothing but, so essentially this is equal to set of all D for which D1 plus 2D2 plus 3D3 equal to 0. Or you can say this is 1, 2, 3. This is grad H1 only. Perp. The subspace that is orthogonal to the vector 1, 2, 3. What is this? Actually, now this is actually a plane parallel to this plane passing through origin. Okay, this one was the given plane was x plus 2y plus 3z equal to 3. And if you consider a plane that is, and this is the vector, right? And if you consider a plane parallel to that passing through origin, okay, then that would be somewhere, I don't know, like you have to imagine some kind of a plane. Parallel to that passing through origin. That would be that. Anyway, but don't worry, do not imagine the plane that passes through origin. Just imagine that, I mean, these are the directions. What directions? Actually, to tell you what are the direction, this is better to imagine. You imagine you are going along the plane in this direction. Imagine you are going along the plane in this direction. You are going along the plane in this direction, along the plane in this directions. That is that actually. So these directions actually you here only, but you imagine it better. It is better that you imagine this. So these are the directions. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay, fine. And by the way, if you wanted to compute the feasible directions dA at this point A, you would get precisely the same, because these are the directions. It is a point like along which you can move in every direction a little bit. Okay, so this here it is satisfying equality. Okay, and of course dA is equal to d closure A. Okay, that is fine. And then one more, 0 0 1. Suppose I am considering the point 0 0 1. This is the point. Okay, I am considering the point 0 0 1. And then what? Now I want to compute d, the linearizing cone. Fine, I want to compute the linearizing cone. Let me compute it here. I call it b. So d of b, I want to compute the linearizing cone, this. So in order to compute this, I first have to see which of those inequality constants are equality over here. Okay, let me see. 0 0 1, because it is 0 0 1, 1 minus x, so it will not be satisfied, not be equality. 1 minus y, not be equality. 1 minus z equal to 0 will be equality. X equal to 0, y equal to 0, z equal to 0, not equality. So these are the three that are satisfied. Okay, so then this dB is the set of directions D such that first one's grad inner product D should be greater than equal to 0. This first one's grad is 0 0 minus 1 inner product D, so that would say D3 should be less than equal to 0. Okay, this is grad G3. Grad G3 is 0 0 minus 1, and that inner product D should be greater than equal to 0, which means D3 is less than equal to 0. Second one will say D1 greater than equal to 0. Third one will say D2 greater than equal to 0. So from these three I am getting. And then there is the equality constant. That also has to be satisfied. What is that? Not the same thing. The same thing, that D1 plus 2D2 plus 3D3 equal to 0. That's this direction. So what type of direction you are talking about? Now these are all those vectors for which the z coordinate will be a little bit negative. D1 has to be greater than equal to 0 and D2 has to be greater than equal to 0. Now if you stand at B, you just stand at B and look down from there, what you are seeing are points down. Okay, they are below. So if you are moving in a direction, the third coordinate will definitely be negative, and that is what it is saying. The third coordinate is negative because you are like slope is downwards. From there you are moving, whatever direction you try to move, you are moving downwards. And of course, if you want to move, either like you will be moving, you can only move in a positive x direction or in a positive y direction. That is what these are signifying. But side by side, what this fellow is saying, now all these you can do, but you will, while staying on the plane itself, d1 plus 2d2 plus 3d3 equal to 0, the direction you are taking, it basically means while staying on the plane. You can move, fine, but stay on the plane. Do not just go like this. That's not good. You stay on the plane. While staying on the plane, these are the points that has to be satisfied. And what do you see here also? If you want to compute, here you will also see this is equal to dB, and this will be a general theorem. Will prove that in such cases they will always be equal. Okay, so that's what the geometry is. So essentially, if you stand here, so it is essentially, again compute, you will see that at this point, if you take a new point C or something here, at this point, so you will get essentially all these directions that are available. That will come out to be what? Now that will come out to be the linearizing cone. That will come out to be the linearizing cone. Okay, it's a affine. In picture, what I am showing is the affine structure. Okay. Okay. Try practicing this one. This is one proposition I want to prove. As I said, the linearizing cone at a point A, it always contains the closure of the feasible directions. This one is somewhat easy. It contains the closure of the feasible directions, and in all these places that we computed, we saw equality. Remember, but the inclusion can actually be strict. So we'll show that inclusion can actually be strict, and we'll show that equality happens when all these constants are linear. You remember here the constants that we had, all of them were linear, just like our LPP, and that's why it is equality. We'll come to that. Okay. I mean, not that's why, that is one of the cases where it is equality. Acha. So what is that you want to prove? Now you want to prove that because it is a closed set, it will contain D closure. It is enough to prove that capital D, all the feasible directions are inside here. So what do I do? Now suppose D is a feasible direction. Okay, D is a feasible direction. What does that mean? Now starting from A, there is some delta amount you can go. A plus delta D. This whole thing is inside T. This is available in T. Fine. And what do I want to show? Now I want to show that D belongs to the linearizing cone. What do I mean by that? Now I want to show, this is to show the linearizing cone at A. That means whatever GI constraints it is satisfying, that should be greater than equal to 0 for active, all those active, and grad Hj transpose D at A, everywhere you write at A, you want to write, is equal to 0 for all J. That's what I want to show. Okay. Okay. So suppose I is an index, suppose Gi is active. I want to show that. So let Gi be active at A. What does that mean? That means Gia is equal to 0. What do I want to show? Now I want to show that grad Gia transpose D equal to 0. What is grad GI A transpose D? Now grad GI A transpose D is nothing but the directional derivative in the direction of D of GI at A. So what is that definition? That definition is limit T going to 0 G I A plus TD minus GIA divided by T. That's the directional derivative of a function along the direction D, right? But GIA is already greater than equal to 0, right? And what about GIA plus TD? Now, if I pick T between 0 to delta, okay, for small this thing, so I pick T between 0 to delta, then GIA plus TD is a feasible, is inside the feasible region, which basically means this value is greater than equal to 0, this value is equal to 0. Therefore, the rest, I mean the quotient, this quotient is greater than equal to 0. So, and I mean, what do I have to say? Let's say, here I am taking, let me take plus here. It is already given, that GIA is differentiable. I want to find out the directional derivative. I can compute in this way only. So I will take only T going to 0 plus from the positive side, because I only know the positive half. I do not know the negative half from A. I only know that A to A plus delta D is inside T. So I cannot do anything. So anyway, this one, this is the same thing, and then the ratio is positive, therefore this is greater than equal to 0, which you wanted to show essentially. This is this. So that shows that, okay, D satisfies that, and ruko, it is not complete. I also have to show that grad HJ transpose, HJA transpose D has to be equal to 0. Now that, what is that? Grad HJA transpose D, so that is the directional derivative again of HJ at A, and that is equal to same as limit T going to 0 plus this limit will be equal to the directional derivative. Why? Now I already know that the derivative exists. So since I know that the derivative exists, this part limit will also be equal to that. So I have no problem in writing this. This is equal to HJA plus TD minus HJA divided by T. And what is this HJA? Now A is a point of feasible set, so therefore this is equal to 0. And what is A plus TD? Now A plus TD is a point inside feasible set, and that is equal to 0, because HJ are equal to 0. All of them are equal to 0, so that is equal to 0. So it satisfies the second one also. So it shows that if I take any D from the feasible set, then that belongs to the linearizing cone. Okay, so yeah, so this much, that is it. Now to compute, to see that it can be strict, so you have to look at this function. So I am taking this kind of a set that the inclusion can be strict. In order to compute that, you have to take the first one, G1. G1 is what? Now it is 1 minus x minus y cube. I have just taken cube. Okay. So that the gradient is 0. I mean, if you have power greater than 1, so then it will be 0. I want to make it 0. And then the second one, G2, is x bigger than equal to 0, and then G3 is y bigger than equal to 0. So G1 essentially says that actually x plus y, x1 minus x minus y cube is greater than equal to 0. Essentially says that 1 minus x minus y is greater than 0, or x plus y is less than 1. Okay, x plus y is less than 1, x greater than 0, y greater than 0. What is that? The region would be this. But you don't know anything. We do not know anything. The function has been given in a complicated form. It is given in a complicated form, and assume that we do not have, I mean, it's given in 4, 5, 6, 7 variables. I mean, who knows what does it represent? This particular one is created in such a way that I can see in the picture and this thing, so that I can have a feeling. But like, I do not know. G1 is G1. 1 minus x minus y whole cube greater than equal to 0. That's it. Okay. And let me take the point half half. Okay, the point half half. So notice that half for the point a equal to half half. If I take a equal to half half, okay, for this point, what are the active constants? Na G1. That is the only one which becomes equality. The other two do not satisfy equality. Okay, G2 will be half, G3x will be half, so they do not satisfy equality. Only one satisfies equality. And there is no equality constant altogether. There is no Hj, only G1, G2, G3. So if I want to compute the linearizing cone at A, I would only say D such that grad G1D is greater than equal to 0. Grad G1, of course, at A. Now what is A equal to half half? Huh? Now what do I do with grad G1? Now if you want to take grad G1, that is why I had taken power 3. Huh? So now grad G1 will turn out to be 0, 0. And therefore, this is the whole of R2. I can take any direction. From half half, I can go in any direction. That's what it is giving. Okay, because grad G1A is 0, 0. Fine. Now what about the feasible directions? This one. Now this is the set of all directions D1, D2 such that some A plus TD, I mean, should be inside T. Okay. Inside T for some 0 less than equal to T less than equal to delta. Assume. Okay. This is the direction. For each direction, I would say and here I also have to write for some delta, because that delta depends on D. Like for each D, that delta amount will be different. So it's not that delta is an universal constant. You can write delta D if you want. Okay, fine. But I understand what do I mean by this. So I am looking for the feasible directions available at half half. If you are looking at the picture, then you know what are the feasible directions available at half half. The feasible directions that are available at half half are essentially this. What does that mean? This means, see, from here D1, what can I say about D1? D1 can be anything. I mean, if I am looking at a feasible direction like this, or a feasible direction like this, what about the first coordinate? Now, first coordinate can increase, can decrease, doesn't matter. If you are looking at the first arrow, then first coordinate can decrease. If you are looking at the second arrow, the first coordinate, similarly the second coordinate. So you cannot say anything. The only thing that you can say is that D1 plus D2 is less than equal to 0, right? So if you want to compute this one, you do the computation one after another. Okay, here actually I have only used the single constant, the first constant. I have not used the second one, assuming that I will have, I mean, I understand that these are somewhat relative interior. So like basically you can also use G2, G3 if you want to write it properly. This will be the set of all D1, D2 such that D1 plus D2 will be less than equal to 0. Okay, so you will have to see that G of A plus TD remains greater than equal to 0. That is G1 of A plus TD remains greater than equal to 0. G2 of A plus TD remains greater than equal to 0, and G3 of A plus TD remains greater than equal to 0. All I was saying that I have not used G2 and G3. You should use, actually, to be precise, you should use. They will not affect anything. So that will turn out to be 0, and that definitely is a closed set, and it is a proper set of R square. So that is it. I will stop here. Questions?